All right, hello, welcome. It's day 183. Thanks for coming back to 365 Days Towards Racial Change. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and we're here talking about racial issues here in America, um, black and white relations, how it's going, what it is, where it comes from, historical connections, uh, present circumstances, future implications. Two big ideas. Are heavy on my mind as I continue this project. And, as I continue the project and kind of live my life out in the world, these two concerns um, become increasingly apparent as time goes on. I'm not going to bore you much about my life and stuff. We got plenty of material to get to, but let me just get to it. This first is the mind of America. Black mind versus white mind. The black mind, is it still a slave mind? Is it still challenged as a slave? Does it still perpetuate a slave attitude in its thinking and its approach and how it navigates a system created by whites for whites, administered by whites? Hmm? Now, the flip side of that same coin about the mind of America is does the white mind of privilege, favor, is that a real phenomenon, mental phenomenon in the American system? A system created by whites, for whites, administered by whites. Now, that's the first thought, mind of America. I'm just going to rush through today, but I just need a repetition, just drive it home. You could skip to the 15-minute mark and we'll talk about other stuff. But stick around. You need to hear this over and over, no matter who you are, black, white, brown, Native American, Hispanic, Arab. If you're listening to this, you got to keep hearing this. This is real, I believe. Now, the second thought is for financial literacy. Very important. Listen, we got a lot of literacies. There's languages, political literacy, etiquette at the dinner table, in a restaurant, at McDonald's. There's a literacy. There's etiquette that goes on when you drive. If you drive, there's a literacy on the road that you're communicating with the drivers and they with you. There's a literacy there. Same way. And I say financial literacy. I'd like to talk about all kinds of others, but let's talk financial literacy primarily because you can't do a damn thing without money, and you need money. You need tangible. You can't have theories. Don't be like me with decades of being so right and knowledgeable and well read, but broke and poor and can't maneuver in the system. The white system, the European system, is about uh, allocating how to handle assets and leveraging, using those assets in a way that benefits yourself. You know, if you can use that leverage, get leverage someone else's power, then you are at the pinnacle of what it means, what that Euro system, white system means in the world. That's its goal. So, me, I got a few dollars, so that's my little bit of leverage. I don't have so much leverage that I lose track of it and can't spend it all. I'm not there yet, but I gotta focus my leverage. I guess I'm going through my period of stewardship right now. I'm not like our president or running Google, Facebook, or Amazon. You know, I gotta, you know, be very focused with my financial leverage. But that's financial literacy. Understand, I can't just spend up stuff. It took me decades to learn that. I've got a daily schedule of disposable income that I can spend. You know, I know exactly how much money I need to make per day to keep my room, phone, and keep fed. You know, I've got that down to a daily thing. Even to the day, even including the days I'm off when I'm not working. Well, I better had you know invested some labor. All I have right now is some labor. I've got some. I've got some investments going, but I know how much labor I gotta produce just to break even. You know, so every day, including days off, I know the figure of what I need. Do you? You know, do you have a weekly budget, a monthly budget? Those things they don't help me because I like to spend money and I can spend money quick, and I'm not even messing with drugs and alcohol anymore, and I can still spend money quick. But now I know how much I can spend in one day. If I don't spend it, it rolls over. Simple. Do try that. See what happens. I tell you what. Oh, and savings is another. I know I got a $5 a day. It was suggested to me by Dr. Boyce Watkins over at the Black Business School. And he said, "Can you put away $5 a day?" Yeah, and it's like amazing. I'm going on vacation. So that $5 a day is part of my daily um, budgeting and stuff. Check it, try it. Write down your expenses for the month. Just your expenses. Don't put any extra. Just your expenses and some savings. Divide it by 30. You know how much you got to make every day. You know how much you got to make every day. You know, and then if you when you do get your paycheck, divide the net by 30, and you're either going to have money left over or you'll be in a deficit. Then you'll know, and you'll be able to navigate, you know, better. You don't do weekly and monthly stuff. Daily, even by the minute, if you really spend money like that. All right, here we go. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Please get these books. If you get one book, get this one definitely. He's got plenty others. This is the best one, I believe, of his work. Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. We go through these books through the year. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. Find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. Behind me, you'll see the hashtag us too symbol. You find black women socializing, supporting one another, and going through their experience. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for kind of a black Facebook experience. If you can't, this is the World Wide Web. You should be able to find your voice and your community and your flavor. If you cannot, do what I did. Start your own. Be disciplined and see how far you can go. Get it off your chest. That's what I've been saying lately. That's what I've been doing. I'm so relieved that Dr. Anderson's he's put some meat on my bones and my angst of what was happening to me in the world, and um, he I'm really thankful for that man. You just don't. You got to be a black man to understand what the relief. He really hits the nail on the head there. Thank you, Dr. Anderson, and thank you, Lord. Now, oh, and we have story time, which we're going to do next couple days. It's the holidays, right? It's the 4th, 2019, summer 4th. Ain't nobody watching this stuff anyway. So let's let's have some diversion before we get back into some discipline. After the 4th, we'll get serious again, just like any other type of vacation thing. We'll get serious. We're going to get back to our leadership. We're not going to leave that alone. But this is a good diversion. We had yesterday the first, uh, Brittany Exeline from Colorado Springs. Great achievements by that young woman. And today we'll do a couple days here in um, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Now we're in chapter 19, which opens with a volume 2, which is interesting. I can't find the volume breaks in the list of contents, table of contents, but I just opened it up. I've read the book as well, so I'm just going through reviewing, commenting on stuff. But so this is a volume 2, and just for a review, this is the book is a compilation of articles that appeared in a abolitionist paper written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. She then, after 40 or so entries, she compiled this book and she collated everything into a book. And here we have Uncle Tom's Cabin, a good major text, important American work. It influences theater. It informs, and I think it heavily informs relationship between blacks and whites in America. Very influential band in the South, of course, at that time, for very good reasons. As we parse through the book, we understand why that is. Uh, when I think it's noted that when the finished edition came out, it flew off the presses like hotcakes and was the #2 bestseller behind, you guessed it, the Bible. Nobody's ever beat the Bible. We print the Bible, which is sad for the world, whatever religion you're into. Got so much religion, but we're killing each other off left and right. Get saved. I got the right God. Boom, boom. Like, dude, hold it. Everybody's got God, but yeah, we're killing off each other. So anyway, but this book's #2. So those kind of statistics should tell you how important this work is, to America. Was a textbook at times, I think I understand, but even older black folks have never read it. Like me, think it was just a little pamphlet about an old uppity slave, because we call people Uncle Toms who black people give us problems. Well, we're learning from the text that Uncle Tom was the epitome of humility and Christ likeness. We're going to run into the character. Like I said, I've read the whole text, but we're going to run into the real character. Like anything in America, terms get switched around and twisted and become dysfunctional over time. Negro, was ascribed black folks, darker colored folks. Now we got nigger and they're all violence and whatnot. Same thing happened to Uncle Tom. Uncle Tom was intercessor, peacemaker, humility, and all that. But if you see a black man acting out, being difficult, we say he's Uncle Tom, and that's totally not the case. We'll get to that in a couple weeks. Today, chapter 19 looks like we're going to split it up in 3 parts, which is perfect for where we're going with the holidays. Part 1, and now we're still Harriet Beecher Stowe is still using Ophelia like her smart device, her phone, and she's taking snapshots of the South, Louisiana South, um, and aspects of race relations, interactions between slaves and masters, the institution of slavery, of the environment, and all this. And she's like she's using Ophelia to pan around and get an understanding of this dynamic. Because Ophelia's from the North, and she's from the free North. The free North um, is free and all that, but we want to remember that the North, while it was a free North, there's still the racism is insidious in the North. It's openly practiced in the South, you know, but in the North it's insidious, and they try to put a respectability on it, but there still is separate, and all this stuff is just that they kind of put slavery behind closed doors. It's still informing the public, no doubt, in a whole lot of ways. You know, on the street, there's maybe some camaraderie, but everybody goes to their respective neighborhoods, homes, and all that. Uh, the, the the slavery institution is concealed in the North. It's openly practiced in the South. Try to remember that about North and South. It wasn't some good, benevolent, moral, upright North. Nah, not. Don't think of it that way. The North still had its issues. Dr. Martin Luther King went to Chicago, and he said, the South needs to come up here and learn how to hate. Yeah. So remember that about the North. All right. Eva was about to go for a ride with Tom, but they heard Prue's story about being used like in some puppy mill, like some kind of bitch, and she's spit out children and all this, and she's has a child starved to death, and she could hear just crying in her ears, and she drinks alcohol to try to get that incident out of her mind. This chapter opens up. There's a substitute. Prue is not there with wares on her head and stuff like that. So this substitute seems to remain nameless. Um, Finally, kind of get some space. Miss Ophelia's there, so slaves don't talk all that openly around white folks when they're around. But the slave is shifty, and Dinah's curiosity is up. Dinah, Mr. Adolph, the other slaves on the St. Clair plantation, they talk bad about Prue, but Prue is the family. You know, she, she's distressed and under and whatnot, but uh, and they talk bad about her and all that, but she's one of the family. It's like America. If America went to war, you're going to find black folks, Hispanics, Native Americans, white folks, shoulder to shoulder, defending America, right? That 4th of July coming up. We're all going to come together. Unfortunately, when all the fighting's done, and while each member of the community has been dismembered, killed, maimed, mentally screwed up for life, we're going to come back home and go to our separate communities. That's the slaves. Yeah, they talk bad about Prue, but Prue is kind of still in the family, so they're concerned that this substitute is there selling the wares and the twice break bread and things like that. And Dinah and this substitute slave finally get away, and they said, and the slave's like, well, rumor has it Prue is in the basement and the flies are at her. And what she's saying is Prue is dead in the basement. And what's happened is Prue has got drunk again. She's stolen money, and her slave masters are determined to beat this out of Prue, and they beat her to death. You know, now she's down rotting in the cellar. Very sad, very sad. So uh, Ophelia does eventually overhear it. Eva overhears. She's uh, she's a ghostly, she's ghostly pale, and stricken with hearing this news. Um, Everyone realizes she's been whipped to death. The news is received and mixed, with the company. Eva's, she's stricken and she's taken away. Ophelia's upset. The house slaves. This is par for the course. This is common news uh, for this slave culture and institution. Uh, Ophelia runs to St. Clair. She wants to kind of report a crime. And St. Clair, I think he's got his pipe. He's reading his paper. Oh, slave was whipped to death, thrown in the basement, flies at her. Okay. He's cool. This is normal life in the South. You know, we're going to get a lot from St. Clair in this. If you haven't noticed by now, Harriet Beecher Stowe was using St. Clair as kind of the revelator of um, slave the slave institution, slaveholding institution in America. And he's very sober. Matter of fact, this is normal. What else? What else have we cleaned out the outhouse today? It's normal. Uh, for the South. He says, look, St. Clair's attitude is like, look, people, some slave owners are brutish and they beat their slaves to death, but it's their property. There's no law or very little written to protect the slaves. I live in a state where we regard dogs very highly, but the dogs don't speak and they don't really reveal their abuses. You got to find these places and these owners. But these abuses go on in this geographical space. Same with slave owners. Some slave owners don't feed their slaves. Their slaves get diseases, mouths rot, all this stuff, and that's just par for the course. And a great many plantations and for slave owners, they beat their property to death. Oh well, that's just like a horse or a chicken or starving the pigs, whatever. That's his attitude. Um, there's no law. We engage in denial. The volume of this type of behavior is too much for the system to bear and go after. It's like, you're on a highway, speed limit 65. Well, everybody's doing close to 80. You don't pull over everybody. You pull over once in a while and make an example. But the culture's moving 80 miles an hour. Same way in St. Clair's mind with the slave ownership institution. It's not, we can't be effective if we go around We'd have to put a monitor at every plantation for every slave. This is an interesting, twist as the internet is getting up and running. I know I get call me paranoid or whatever, but I know there's all kinds of bots, programs, surveillance going on with our devices, and we're getting to that 1984 state. You know, we just got to make it normalized. I think we're very close to being there already, if we're not already there. Ophelia responds. She sits down with her knitting, and she's still trying to absorb this. Remember, she's going through this in the last chapter. She's been going through this adjustment since she came down south from Vermont. So she's still figuring it out. Harriet Beecher Stowe is using her in a great way to illustrate some of the evils of the slave culture, slave ownership culture. More debate about the ethics in the South. Um, understand. St. Clair's like, look, he makes up a character named Quashi, and he says Quashi is ignorant, malleable, obedient, and it's just has been allotted to him by God for Quashi to be used in this way. It's been allotted to St. Clair and St. Clair's family to use Quashi and people like Quashi in this way. What's the problem? Is St. Clair's attitude. You know, come on, Ophelia, don't you get it? God is over this. Even as devilish, as evil as this business is, even as these slave owners can whip their slaves to death and throw them in the cellar and let the flies and maggots get at them. Yeah, it's poor, it's rude, and whatnot, but I'm on the good side of it. Thank, thank you, Lord. Is his attitude. His attitude is indifference, apathy. He's got favor. Bring it, he says. Wealth. He's sitting as they're having this conversation. He's getting 100, 200, up to 1,000 times profit on those black bodies working his plantation. He doesn't have a care in the world. You know, everything's good at home. I don't care what's going on. I don't beat my slaves to death, is his attitude. Let them go for it. Beat them to death. Uh, so understand, this normalcy, um, this kind of life, this is written into the foundation of America. This is what makes America America. You don't see now. All right, we can look at America with open eyes as we come into this 4th of July and say, look, I don't. Land of the free, home of the brave, but I'm going to be sober, vigilant, and look at America with some understanding because we've seen slavery written into the Constitution. We know these white Europeans intentionally excluded slaves from our black people, I should say, from participating. They created this class of people, used them to the nth degree, abandoned them, and kept the lid on equal participation of this group. You know, they allow outliers to rise up, especially mostly entertainment, to rise up in the system. So you can have some tokens and examples to show the world. Uh, but this American system, you know, this slavery is the root. We can find a lot of other things. There's some violence. There's some men and women who know how to make a government and understand international policy and all that. But a portion of the root system that feeds America is slavery, still is slavery, right? If you followed here for any length of time, you got to know we've not gotten away from slavery. I am still compelled to live a life that's very much in the service to this white institution. Not going to get around that. It's very hard to get around that. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of knowledge, and there's a lot of roadblocks and distractions on the way, especially for black folks. A lot to navigate. I'm running over time, about to start preaching here, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to stay focused, and we're going to got a couple more days in this chapter. God rest Prue, and we're going to look at some other aspects of this slavery institution, some of the root issues and foundational uh, pieces that make up America and that continue and that abide to this day. I'm Thomas Nyback, day 183 out of the way of 365 days towards racial change. Listen, come back tomorrow. Happy holidays.